Okay, so we're gonna review what we covered in WST154, make sure everyone remembers all of that, and then we'll move on to some new stuff. Okay, so the very first thing we learned in JavaScript was how to use variables. Variables just um, a container to store some data. So you could store some string in there, a number. And this was the example we did. Here we just see a story. There once was a man named Hogarth, lived in a trailer in the woods. One day Hogarth ran to a tiger, and Hogarth was defenseless against the tiger, so he had to run back to his trailer. So here it looks like a normal um, sentence string. If you look at the HTML, again, it just looks normal. But this text is generated from this JavaScript code. Now if we click sources, we should be able to see that JavaScript code. We can see here there's a variable name, place, and animal. Okay, and basically whatever the value of this variable name is what you're gonna see here in place of Hogarth. I'm not sure if we could change these. I don't think it'll update right away. No, you can't do it that way, I guess. Maybe if I refresh, no, it doesn't work like that. We could just look at the actual code file. Let's open VS Code here. So I'm just gonna do this git bash here. Actually, we'll probably start using GitHub a little bit more here. So why don't I uh, have you guys install GitHub or git bash if you don't have it. If you're on a Mac, you already have this terminal that might um, look. It might not say git bash. It'll probably say just bash terminal. But if you type in things like ls, it'll show you like a list of files in the current directory. So if you have bash, ls will do that. It's one way to check if you have that or you're using a different one. On command prompt, it's dir. Dir also works in bash, but if you open command prompt, it's a different terminal. This one you can't do ls, so ls is not recognized. This one it does work, so that's how you know you're in bash. But you use dir on this one. So um, I when I installed VS Code, you sometimes if you install it with the certain settings turned on, you could right click and then you could say open with VS Code, but I don't have that here. I don't have the open with VS Code option when I right click. So next best thing is opening git bash here because I have that, and then I can type code period, and that opens VS Code in that current directory. But again, it all depends on how you installed git bash, and if you have the right click option for open with VS Code, that's even quicker. Or you could just open VS Code the normal way and say file open folder and open that folder. Anyways, so here's the code, same code we were just looking at in the browser. Just to review this, if I type Fred here and I change this to um, apartment, I change this to I don't know, raccoon. I save that. Those are the only three variables the story is using. You can see that story equals there once was a man named plus the name. Okay. Why does it say deprecated? Probably because I'm using a reserved word. Let's say person instead of name. I guess it doesn't like that I'm using the word name because name is a generic term. Might be used in a programming language in some way. It's a reserved word, so it's better not to use the word name. So I'll just change these all to person. Okay, so person is Fred. There once was a man named plus person. So it's gonna say there was once a man named Fred, since person is Fred. Fred lived in a place, or Fred lived in an apartment. Fred went to catch some fish, but ran into a raccoon. Fred was defenseless against the raccoon, so he had to run back to his apartment. Okay, so I did one this way to show you could use the plus sign to connect a string. Remember, words in within a single or double quotes, we call them strings. Okay, this is the variable person, and the plus sign is used. Well, it's used for addition, but it's also if you use it with strings, it's gonna concatenate, and concatenate just means put stuff next to each other. So there once was a man named. This will just put person next to it, so it'll say Fred. That's what concatenation is. So one thing about concatenation you have to remember if you're putting strings together, don't forget to put that space there, because when you add person to it, it's just gonna stick it next to it unless you included like a string, a space there. Okay. So it's kind of annoying doing it this way with the plus sign concatenation. That's why I also did it this way. So this is sort of a newer addition to JavaScript. This was added later in I think 2015. Um, so the ES6 standard of JavaScript, because every time they update JavaScript, um, ECMAScript is the organization that standardizes it, so that's why it's called ES6, ES ECMAScript version 6. That's when they introduced this thing here, the dollar sign, parentheses. It just makes adding variables inside like a sentence a lot easier, because now instead of having to put a plus sign and then quotes around, or like I don't know, putting a quote around this whole thing, and then the way I have it here, using a plus sign plus that, you could just use, instead of normal quotes, this single quote here, I'm using a backtick. So replace the normal single quote with a backtick. That's the one next to the number one on your keyboard or above the tab button. You use a backtick. That lets you use dollar sign and then open curly bracket, your variable, and then a close curly bracket. That lets you just inject the variable directly into the sentence. And I don't know, it's just a little bit easier to read this way. Okay, so those
I
are
did.
two things we did. Huh? Say something?
Uh, yeah, I did. I kind of have a question.
Yeah.
When you mentioned about like to check if I'm on a Mac and to check on the command, how to get a command line on Mac to check
It's well,
that thing?
open your terminal. Uh, Wait,
Not terminal. That's oh, okay.
yeah, but I don't think I don't, do you have the right click option? I don't know. On a Mac, I don't think you can right click and open terminal here. Like on Windows, if I right click, I can always say open in terminal or open git bash here. I don't know if you could do that on a Mac.
Um, I already have a terminal and
Yeah, yeah. So Mac comes with the bash terminal automatically. It already has support for Git. Well, you could actually test it. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, open your terminal on the Mac and then type git dash dash version and see what it says.
git dash dash version. I don't see anything.
You typed git dash dash version in the terminal and pressed enter.
Yeah, git dash dash version, and there's nothing. Anyways, I'll try to find out about this one. Thank you, though. I just need to know the terminal.
Mm,
Because Windows, it's command prompt, and on Mac, it's terminal. So
yeah.
I forgot the term terminal. Thank you, though.
But the terminal and the commands on terminal and bash or the git bash are exactly the same. So you
Yeah.
should also be able to do ls. But it shouldn't show nothing though. If you type git dash dash version, it should either say command not found or
Command not found. It did say command not found.
ah, okay, then maybe you don't have
Ah,
git
have to
installed.
download that one. Okay.
Um,
All right.
well, to download it, just go to. Why don't you guys do this right now? Where's my browser? Oops. Okay, go to not GitHub. We need Git. Okay, so go to git-scm.com. You should see this. I have a download for Windows. If you're on a Mac, you'll probably see a Mac version. There are several options for installing Git on Mac OS.
Git dash scm.com, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And it'll have instructions for Mac OS. There's, I guess, different ways to install it. Install Homebrew if you don't already have it, then brew install Git. And then
All right. I'll thank you for the link.
you're welcome. Okay, back to this. Any questions on concatenation or variables or the template literal notation with the backticks? No? Yeah, yellow. Yellow is the sign in. Okay, so moving on from the basic variables and concatenation and template literals, I think the next project we did in WST154, I think was objects and arrays. So let me extract that. Let's open this with the VS Code. Right here, I'll just do it this way. Drag the folder into VS Code. Okay, so in this one we have an HTML file, which let's open it and look at it real quick. Okay, we have a table, HTML table, and I've got a couple rows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. And we've got a couple cars, make, model, year, color, and some features. Okay, one thing we'll notice about the make, model, year, color, this is a string, this is a string, this is a number, could also be a string. If you put quotes around it, it's a string. If you don't, it's a number. Another string, and then here we have more strings, but separated with commas. So we know that that's probably an array. So that's what the HTML puts out. But let's see what we did here. Okay, we have some CSS, we have the HTML. In the HTML, we have the headers. So photo, make, model, year, color, features. That part is hard coded, but that's all hard coded. Excuse me. So hard coded as in we we're not using JavaScript to write these words. We're just using they're just written in HTML. Okay, and then we have car 1 and car 2. Those are the two rows that we have. Row 1, row 2. And each of these has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. Okay, we have one with the class of image URL, one make, model, year, color, and features. And notice there's nothing inside. Okay, so that's not hard coded. That's coming from somewhere else because obviously it says Jeep Wrangler 2022 here, but we don't see Jeep Wrangler 2022. We just see empty. Okay, so we're using JavaScript to actually replace what's inside there. So this also gets replaced. This is a placeholder, so that will get replaced with the actual make, and same thing with the other row. Okay, and then here's the script to the JavaScript. So our JavaScript is, I could have put it between the opening and closing script tag directly, right? That's one way to add JavaScript. You just put the JavaScript code between the opening and closing script tag, or you could use source equals and then just link to an external JavaScript file, and that's what we did here. So JSScript.js. So inside the JS folder, script.js. Here we can see the code. So we have car1, it's an empty object. Okay, car2 is also an object, but this one is not empty. It's got all the information inside. The reason why I did it this way and then this way is just to show you two ways of creating an object in JavaScript. One way is to create an empty object and then add the objects in there after, or you could just create the object with all the properties included. Okay, so car1 is the empty one. Here we can see we're adding stuff to car1. We use the dot notation in JavaScript. We say car1 dot and then the property. These are properties. Now in JavaScript, um, you could define an object with nothing inside. And then if I say car1 dot image URL, that means it's gonna add a image URL property to the car1, and it's gonna set the value to whatever I put here. Okay, so car1 is gonna have an image URL, which is basically the path to the image. Images / Wrangler, right? So it's notice it's images / that means we're starting from index.html. We're starting from wherever this script is loaded. So since that's in index.html over here, we could go to images forward slash Wrangler and it'll find it. um, but if this was coming from like the JavaScript folder, we would have to do a dot forward slash to get out of there first. But anyway, this just shows you that we're starting from the index file. Um, so we're setting all the properties. So string, string, string. These are all strings. And then car1.features, that one's an array. Got to create an array, you use the square bracket notation, and then you have a comma separated list of strings for the different features. Okay, I'm not sure why I used this one. It's probably just showing some example of something, but another array probably has nothing to do with our index file. Um, okay, so once you define, you have your objects. Okay, we have car 1 and 2 now, right? This stuff adds all this to car 1, so car 1 also will look like this now. They both have their properties. Then what we do is we grab the actual element. Document.query selector is a way of basically using CSS selectors to select an element on the page. So query selector means just select it using how you would do it in CSS normally. So in CSS we use selectors, right? We say image or hashtag car1 and then whatever whatever element inside car1 has a class of make. So basically there's car1 id car1 make class make. So we're basically selecting this element here, this one, yeah, oh, this one, car1 make. So car1 make, we're setting it to this variable, we're calling it car1 make, or car1 image URL. We're using the same method to select all those different elements that we have here. And then for car1 image URL, this element that we just selected, um, we're selecting the image element inside of that. So another query selector image, right? Because this one has another element inside the image element. So we're grabbing that now. And we're setting the attribute source to car1.image URL. And car1.image URL is that. So we're basically setting the source attribute. With JavaScript, we're adding source equals images forward slash wrangler.avif. But the JavaScript is doing that for us. Okay, and we use that same method for all the other columns. Okay, and so we do that with both of the rows. Same thing here. And then to write or to replace what's between this, because that was setting an image source, but this is a little different. This is setting the text within the, the element. So to set the text inside the element, we use the .inner HTML. So we get the element car2 make, that's the table data car2 make, that's this TD element. So we're just saying the inner HTML of that element, so the table data inner HTML is going to be whatever car2.make is. So car2.make, or that's car1. Where's car2? There it is, Honda. So you could use inner HTML. You could also use inner text. Ah, text. That also works. There is a difference though between inner text, inner HTML. Difference is if you do inner text, it's just gonna interpret that as text. Whatever car2 make is, it's just gonna um, print it as a string, simple text. But if you use HTML, inner HTML, it will print it as an HTML element if there are any HTML elements inside. If not, it's just going to be string, so it'll be the same thing as inner text. So basically, for let's say car2 make, let me show you an example. Let's open this with live server and place this here. So here's the difference between inner HTML and inner text. Let's say, let me zoom out here a little. Why is this red? Or did I set it to red? Maybe in here? Oh yeah, I did it here. Anyways, ignoring that. Okay, let's say um let's say instead of Wrangler, so here it just says Wrangler. If I want, I could also put HTML within this string here. I mean, it'll read it as just a regular string. If I say, I don't know, let's do a em tag. Em is a tag that adds emphasis, or it makes the text italic. Okay, you can see here it's now this became italic, so it's actually seeing it's adding an em tag in there around Wrangler. But and what was that? Car1.make. Car1.make. Here it is. Okay, so we're saying car1.make dot inner HTML equals car1.make. Car1make dot HTML inner HTML equals car1.make. So basically, it's getting um, the table data that has a class of car1make, and it's setting the inner HTML to car1.make, just car1.make, which is Jeep. I'm actually looking for model. Let's look at model. So car1.model.inner HTML is car1.model. If I change this to inner text, and you could see instead of interpreting the HTML element, it's just printing it out as a string. So that's the difference between inner HTML and inner text. If you want to actually include this as HTML, then use inner HTML. You might ask, why is this even an option? I mean, yeah, because you might want to write HTML on the page. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a tutorial or something, and you want to show people that the HTML tags. That's one way of doing it. Also, it could be used for security purposes, maybe preventing people from uh, using any code in there or anything. Just basically prints everything out as string strictly. Nothing can be um, read as a program. I don't know. I'm assuming it's also a safety thing. Um, yeah, so we have the table, empty table, mostly empty table, and we're just using JavaScript to grab the element and then set the inner HTML of the element, or in the case of the image, we're setting the attribute, the source attribute of the image. So just to show you that you can manipulate your HTML and CSS with JavaScript. So hopefully you all remember this one. Any questions? No, this is the continuation for 154. Last time we did 154.
Oh, because I took 151 with Nelson like in January. So I was just wondering if it's the continuation for the HTML class. But
This is continuation of
oh,
154, which was back in 2023, July. So it's been a while. That's why I was kind of concerned.
I don't think I ever took the 154 class. That's why it's all new to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list of students I had in this class.
Mhm.
JB was there, Leandro was there, Edelvan was there. Um, the rest of you, I don't think were there. So remind me again who has not taken 154.
Me, Harumi.
So Joaquin and Christina, you guys took it 154? Because I don't see you in the attendance list. I'm guessing took it last 2 months. Hold on, was there a more recent session than summer 2023? What do you mean from a different class? Like different teacher at LAPC?
I only took 151 with Nelson. I started last year, but I was taking Photoshop and Illustrator classes.
I'm asking Christina because she's saying she took it last 2 months. I haven't taught this class for a while. I don't know. Was someone else teaching it in a couple months ago? I don't think anyone else does. Oh, you took it on your own. Yeah, I forgot. I see. I that's why I'm confused. Yeah, so a couple of you might have taken it self-study. Okay, a little too late. It's recorded too. What about Joaquin? Have you taken 154? I don't have you in the list either. Anyways, that's a big concern because that means I have to go over the basics. How much of this did you guys understand that I was reviewing?
I feel like it's all new to me, so I'm kind of not following, and I don't want to delay them. So,
Okay. Well, I have notes for you to look through. I will um, give these notes. Wait, where is the thing I had for notes? Okay, hold on one sec. Let me pause the recording. Okay, so for those of you that need a refresher, I have these notes. I'm putting it in the chat. Basically, it goes over what is JavaScript. It's a high-level interpreted programming language. Okay. Um, I think it was written in C++, if I'm not mistaken. C programming language. JavaScript is primarily written in C programming language. So, um, high level just means it's further away from like machine code. It's um, more human friendly, more easy to use by being high level. A lower language would be something like C programming language. JavaScript is written in C, and C is written in like even more basic machine language that's harder for people to read, closer to the what the machine understands. Um, Remember, computers read zeros and ones, so people somehow figured out how to put zeros and ones together and made a little language about it. Like, okay, this many zeros with this many ones means this number or this letter. And slowly they kept building it or abstracting it so that becomes more human readable. Okay, and JavaScript is high level, so means it's further away from that zeros and ones. So it should be easier for people to use as a programming language. Um, it's one of the core technologies of the World Wide Web. So the websites use HTML to bring you the content. They use CSS to style the content, and they use JavaScript to add some interactivity. Enables you to create dynamically updating content, control multimedia, animate images, and more. It requires a program that can read it and an environment. It's standardized by ECMA International. Has been around since mid 1990s and can be used client side or server side. Client side means you could use it in your HTML and it'll be read by the browser, your browser here in the console. You could type JavaScript So um, alert. I thought it would alert something. It did not. Oh, it did. Embedded. Okay, I just caused this little thing with JavaScript to pop up. So your browser can read JavaScript. That's what client side means. So you could use it to mess with your web pages um, from the user's perspective. So it'll actually be your own browser window, your own computer that's causing the changes to appear. Server side means it happens on the server before it reaches your computer, before it reaches your browser. So a lot of more sensitive stuff, maybe password verification and databases and lookups. All that stuff happens on the server side where you can't access it. Basically, you just see it if the server sends it to you. But client side means it's generated on your browser. Okay, just client side, server side. That's what JavaScript is. Um, who should learn it? Well, web developers, of course, front end, back end, or full stack. Front end means you work mainly on the front end stuff, like what's on the browser. Back end means you focus mainly on that back end stuff, like the database and the server and um, all the logic back there. I'd say that's probably more difficult than the front end, or maybe not more difficult, but maybe the front end is more for a designer or someone that has the design skills as well as a little bit of programming skills. Back end maybe just focuses on the programming stuff, the logic, or full stack, which just means you do both. You do front and back. Okay, it's also for mobile app developers, desktop app developers, and game developers. Why average salary 78,000, high demand, top 5 programming languages, easy to learn, easy to begin. By the way, this is maybe could be outdated. Although I don't know, it's probably still average. Depends on where you are. It's high demand. Again, it's the main programming language that web browsers use for the front end, so of course it's high demand. Um, although basic JavaScript doesn't cut it anymore. I mean, it still does, I guess, but mostly people use other libraries and frameworks. If you've ever heard of things like React or Vue or Angular, those are like um, it's even higher level basically. JavaScript is high level above C++. Then people create these other basic libraries or frameworks that are supposed to make, I don't know, creating interactions, creating websites more easy or convenient. So like, it just adds more features to it. Um, but first you would learn JavaScript before you learn those other things. At the end, they're still using JavaScript. They just have some special syntax that you could add on top of them, like um, the first thing I was talking about. Let's go back to was it this one? Wait, no, not that one. What did I do with it? The JavaScript basics. Let's open this in a separate VS Code. Just have it open. Okay, so you know how I said with JavaScript you have to use like the concatenation plus sign to string things together, but then ECMAScript 6 they introduced this thing. Well, think of those libraries that I mentioned, like Vue and React, as just additional abilities like the dollar sign and the curly brackets. They give you more ways of doing things like this, except it's a lot more complicated because um, you have to follow their structure that they have. So it's another thing to learn basically, but it's basically just JavaScript with more abilities like this added on top of it. So those are libraries and frameworks. They're kind of the same thing, but a framework, I guess, is a little bit more robust than a library. Okay, it could be fun. I mean, it's fun, like telling the computer to do things, figuring out how to program it. And if you're trying to just get into programming in general, JavaScript's an easy language to start with. I would say it's the easiest. Um, where can you write it? You could write it in plain text editors. So you could write it in Notepad, just like you could write HTML or CSS in a Notepad. You could write JavaScript in there. Just change the extension to .js and it becomes a JavaScript file. So Notepad, text edit, or you could use an integrated development environment. I don't know if VS Code counts as it or brackets. I guess they do. IDEs. VS Code is the popular one. Most people use that. You also have brackets, Dreamweaver, Atom, and Eclipse. Um, you could also write JavaScript in your browser developer tools console. It's all available on Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. Just showed you a second ago the console. Let me do this in what this is Chrome. Okay. When I do just any new Chrome window, if you right click and say inspect, you'll be able to see console up here. When you click on the console, you could write JavaScript in there. Like um, document dot body dot style dot background color equals red, let's say. Right, I just wrote some JavaScript and I changed the background to red. So you could write your JavaScript in there. When you refresh it, it goes back to the way it was. Okay, any questions so far? Sorry for the review for anyone that is too easy for. I'm sure you still appreciate our little review. And Harumi, I know you're not the only one that's new to this, so don't worry. But if you guys have questions, don't be shy, ask. Because
Thank
if you don't understand the very basics, it's easy to get lost later. So at least understand the basics. Okay,
thank you, appreciate it.
welcome. Okay, so writing JavaScript has some basic rules. Extra white spaces are ignored outside of quotation marks. So Why don't we write this in the console so you can see an example. So basically, if I say let, and I have a bunch of spaces here, I say fruit equal banana, and I have like a bunch of space here, a bunch of space here. All these extra spaces don't really mean anything. That's the same as if I wrote it without all the extra spaces. Okay, also putting it on separate lines shouldn't really make a difference, but that's only JavaScript. Okay, well, not only, but specific to JavaScript. Some other programming languages like Python, I know in Python it matters if you press return and go to the next line. That will be different than if you put everything on the same line, but in JavaScript it doesn't matter. Okay, instructions end with a semicolon. Notice I put a semicolon at the end of these, although it's not super strict about it. If I say let vegetable equal carrot, and I don't put the semicolon, it still works. By the way, if you want to see what fruit is, you just type fruit. You want to see what vegetable is, oops, make sure you type the full name. It'll return what the value of that variable is. Okay, and let let fruit equal. This is how you create variables in JavaScript. You use the let keyword, although that's also kind of new. You could also use var fruit 2 equals apple, or var veggie equals celery. So there's a slight difference between saying var fruit or let fruit, but I'll go over that later. Okay. So let fruit equal apple, let age equal 234. So anything in quotes, we call that a string. Anything without a quote, well, not anything, but a number without a quote is a number. And unlike the lower level programming languages, you don't have to worry about what type of number it is. Okay, in something like Java, by the way, Java and JavaScript are not the same. Java is more lower level, something, it's more similar to C or C++. Um, but in those other programming languages, I guess the ones that I think are more difficult, you have to say what type of number. Oh, notice we don't even have to say that this is a number. We just say let age equals. But in other languages, you might have to say let number or let int, or instead of let, it would be int for integer, age equals. So you first have to say what type of data it is. If it's a string, you have to say string fruit equals. But in JavaScript doesn't matter. You just use let and var for everything. So that's one thing to be thankful for in JavaScript. You could just you don't have to worry about what type of integer or how much data that integer takes up. Order usually matters. Everything is read top down, left to right. That means if, let's say I have Um, let's say I have a short sentence. Say today I had plus food plus for lunch. Okay, today I had, and I'm using a variable food for lunch. And then down here I say let food equal, I don't know, lasagna. Okay. Since it's read from top to bottom, left to right, this will be a problem because I'm trying to use this variable food, but I don't declare what food is until after that. So if I press enter to execute this, you see we get an error. Food is not defined. So here it's reading this and then it's saying, it's starting from here. It's saying, okay, I'm reading this. Today I had plus food. Okay, food is undefined. Error. Doesn't know what food is. It doesn't read the whole thing and then see food equals lasagna and then interpret this. It just interprets it as it goes. So if it's going, sees food, but it doesn't know what food is yet, you get an error. That's how it usually is. So if I wrote the same thing but moved food up here, then I don't get an error. Then I could just type sentence and I get the sentence as it should be. So order usually matters. And I say usually matters because there's sometimes things that happen on the page, like when you first load it. There are some things that get read and saved into memory, so they're ready to use even before the rest of the code. Mainly functions. If you create a function is basically a set of instructions that you can save and call whenever you want, like alert hello. Function say hello. Forget to give it a name. That's how we do it. Function say hello. I'm creating a function called say hello, and it's alerting hello. By the way, alert is also a function. Alert gives you a little window and then says whatever you put in there. So I'm creating a function called say hello that calls this function that alerts something. And then you could call, since you created the function, you can call it whenever you want. And to call a function, you have to write the name of the function and then what do you call it, parentheses. And you can see here it says hello. That's an alert. And you can call it multiple times. Okay. So I'm calling say hello and I'm calling say hello again. So it should do it twice. I clicked OK, did it twice. So whenever you write a function, that's the only time it doesn't matter. You could say let's create another function, add one, add one to a number that we pass into it. So we say num or return num plus 1. I'm creating a function called add1 that you could pass in any number to it, and it'll add 1 to it and give you that number back. Okay, but let's say I call it before. Oops, what did I do? Let's bring it back. By the pressing the up arrow on the keyboard shows you things you typed in earlier. Did I? Let me refresh the page. All the stuff I'm doing, by the way, gets saved in the memory. If you refresh the page, then it goes away. Okay. You could clear those things, errors that pop up by clicking that button. Right. So let's say I want to add 1 to 22. So here I'm calling a function add1 and I'm passing it to 22. So basically I expect it to say 23. Right now if I press enter, it's going to say uncaught reference error, add1 is not defined because I didn't define it yet. I refreshed the page, so it's gone. But if I say add1 and then later underneath it I say function add1, which takes that number and then returns that number plus 1. Here, even though I'm creating the function after calling it here, I still won't get an error because this is one of those situations where it doesn't really matter. The order is not as important in this situation. And the reason is because when you define a function using the function keyword like I did here, there's a thing called hoisting where before the page loads and before it starts reading add1, it looks at all the functions that you declared, it saves them so it knows that this function exists, then it starts reading these. Okay, but only in that situation. You could write functions in a different way. You could say let add 2 equal, just another way of creating the same function. Return num plus 2. If I try to do add 2 to 22 and I created the function this way, then I'll get the error. Okay, it's only when you define the function using the function keyword, but we'll go over that again later. I just want to get that point across that order usually matters, but there's cases where it doesn't. Okay, we'll get to the functions and stuff later so you can understand it. Okay, so if you say let x equals 30 and then you say console log x, you're gonna get 30. But if you say console log y and then you say var y equals 10, you're gonna get undefined. Okay, JavaScript can be written inside an HTML file or saved as a separate JavaScript file. And that's this example here, right? We have HTML and we have this JavaScript saved in a separate file. Any questions? Questions? Why don't you guys like mess around a little bit especially the ones that are new to this. Why don't you either in your, probably in the browser because it's the quickest way to just jump into it. Open your Chrome, right click and say inspect, and then click on the console. If there's any of these warnings, just click the clear button. One thing you should know doing things in Chrome, um, if you're trying to jump to the next line, don't press enter, press shift enter. Pressing enter will, oh my god, these things are annoying. Why is this popping up constantly? It just keeps doing it. Clear. Anyways, ignore that. I don't know why it keeps doing it. So if you say let x equal 1 and you want to jump to the next line, you could press shift enter. It goes down to the next line. If you just press enter, it executes the code. By the way, if it does that, you could do that too. I mean, it's gonna save it. If you say x equals 1, you press enter. Now it knows x equals 1. If you ever type x, it'll give you the return value. I wonder how I could stop this thing. Third-party cookie will be blocked. Learn more in the issues tab. Why does it keep popping up? I guess it's from one of my extensions. I have some extensions. I should disable them or something. But one of them is trying to do things. So you might not see that warning that I'm seeing. Do we get to different? No, we're still looking at basic rules. So extra white spaces don't matter. Order usually matters. You can write JavaScript inside an HTML file or save it as a separate file. If you save it as a separate file, you just put .js at the end of it. I'm trying to zoom in, it's not working. Anyways, mycode.js. Mycode.js. That's the JavaScript file. And you just write your JavaScript in there. Or you could write it in HTML. And here I'm linking to a JavaScript file, but I could also just use this script tag. Script. And I could write JavaScript in here. By the way, that thing that you see there, you know how it's popping up this gray, well, I can't, this gray const p equals document query selector p dot text content equals hello world. This is I've got an extension installed on VS Code for GitHub Copilot, and it's basically AI assistant. So it sees what I have here and it tries to guess what I'm gonna type next. Now it's guessing I'm gonna type something like this, which is not too far off. Basic introduction to JavaScript stuff. Notice const here instead of let and instead of var. Const is another one you can use. Const is a little different than var and let because with const you can't change the value of p. If it's query selector p and it's this paragraph, then you can't change it to something else. Or if it's a number, like const x equals 5, you can't say x equals 2. It's not gonna let you. That will give you an error because you said constant, as in it never changes. But if you say oops, let or var, then you could change it because it's a variable, or it'll let you change it. It's one difference between const and the other two, let and var. I've got an example of placing JavaScript in an HTML file here. And I'll let you sort of explore the rest of that on your own time. Try to catch up a little bit. I would say, I don't know, read through this entire thing, I guess, when you get a chance. Um, maybe you won't. Well, I don't know if we even reached. Wait, I think we did. I didn't even look at the rest of the review. Saw the first two assignments from last session, but we didn't see conditionals and the to-do list. Okay, conditionals are if-else statements. Actually, that's in the notes here. It comes up somewhere. While loops, conditionals. Okay, so after you get through the basics and how to add JavaScript, the var, let, and const keywords, naming convention, certain names you could give your variables. They are case sensitive. These are reserved words you should not use for the name of a variable. And here we have our data types, primitives, and objects. Primitives are the more basic things like the strings and the numbers and the true and false. Those are primitives. Objects are more complicated data. Objects can contain primitives. Here we go over the primitive data types: string, number, boolean, null, undefined, and symbol. Everything else is a type of object. So objects, arrays, functions, date, math, regular expressions. Primitives contain data, objects refer to data. Primitives with the same value are equal, but objects with the same value are different. That's because you have a primitive like x equals 5. It stores the value, the variable x in the memory. It has a location in memory for x and sets it equal to 5. And if you compare that 5 with another variable that also has a value of 5, then yeah, you're going to get equal. But it's a little bit different with objects. because with the objects, it looks at the location in the memory and not what's in the object itself. It doesn't look at the value of it. So comparing two objects, you're basically comparing two different memory locations, so you get false if you compare them, even if they're exactly the same. But with variables, since it's looking at the value 5 and 5 or apple and apple, it'll be true. But if you have an object, car equals make Honda Civic, color red, and you have another one, car 2 equals make Honda Civic, color red, they're going to be different because it's looking at their memory locations, not the actual value. Not super important at this point to know that, but anyway, just letting you know. Okay, this goes over strings, numbers, booleans, true or false. It's really important, double equal versus a single equal or triple equal is a difference. You compare with two equal signs. So if you want to check if, let's say x equals 5 or 4, y equals 3, and you want to compare is x equal to y, you use is x double equal y. So this compares them, the two equals. It checks if x is equal to y. And we get false because they're not equal. But if you say x equals y, then you're basically setting x equal to 3. So now if I type x is 3, y is also 3. X equal to y now, yes, true now because I just changed x to whatever y was, which was 3. So now they're the same. And then the triple equals, we'll check if they're the same value and same data type, because 3 could be a number, it could also be a string. So since it's 3 is a number 3, it's not the string 3, we get false. That's what the difference between triple and double is. It's like a more strict comparison. Anyways, let's take a break. Come back, hopefully go over the rest of the review. Try to get through as much review as I can today so everyone's kind of caught up. But you are going to have to maybe catch up on your own a little bit at home or after class. Just look through the notes and make sure to ask questions anytime I'm going too fast. Okay, break time. Alright, let's continue. Okay, null and undefined. So you could declare a variable like var color and not give it a value. If I say color, just as undefined, and then you could set color equals yellow. Okay, so whenever it's undefined, it's just gonna say undefined. So you haven't defined it yet. Null is kind of the same as undefined, except it's you intentionally set something to null. So I could say color equals null. And if I say color, it's null. It's kind of the same thing, but undefined means it was never defined in the first place. Null is never automatically assigned, so you have to assign it. Don't worry about symbols. Kind of don't understand the use case exactly for it yet. think it's supposed to give you like a random unique character or something. But anyways, it's something new, but we could forget about that for now. And objects are really important to understand. And we saw objects with the make, model, year, and color. Right, this is an object. Call this an object in JavaScript. In other programming languages, it might have a different name. Um, but here we just call them objects. Okay, objects can have properties. Properties are separated with commas. You can have multiple properties, and in JavaScript, your properties can be any data type. Could be a string like this or that. Could be a number like this. Could be an array. Could be another object like friend equals car1. Put a whole other object. Not sorry, not equal. Colon. Don't know why I put a equal. Okay, and we separate them with a colon. The property and its value. We use a colon to assign it, and then we separate the entire property with a comma. Okay, and when I say this could be another object, car1 is an object. We know that because here it is. Car1 is this object, which later we apply these properties. But you could also say friend2. You could put a whole other object like this in there. So you could put objects in objects. You could put objects in objects in objects. Put an array in an object in an object. It just never ends. Okay. Objects, besides properties, objects can also have methods. A method is a function inside an object. With the car example, let me undo some of this stuff. Okay, so we have all these properties, property, 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 property. A method would be a property that's a function. Okay, so it's written just like another property with the colon, except the value is a function. We call that a method. Put a there. You can put that there. This is a comment in JavaScript. We comment with forward slash, forward slash, forward slash. Okay, these are all properties. Oops. Okay, yeah, these are all properties. This is a method. Slash property. I don't know if it's correct to call it a property as well. Anyways, a property that's a function is a method. Okay, so you could call functions like every object could have its own function. And that's kind of like what you're seeing when I do inspect. By the way, you could dock this on the side. I don't know why it's not docked right now. This is Chrome. Why does this seem like it's not Chrome? And where's the button to dock it on the top? That's weird. Maybe because I have a PDF open. Yeah, it's probably because it's a PDF. Normal page you inspect, it should be attached like this on the side. But you could always pop it out like this. Or you can, I guess, what should I do? Click that button. Then it's like it's its own window, but this is the console for this page. But I think I like it better when it's docked. Usually on the right side. Um, okay, yeah, what was I saying? Objects can have their own properties. So, um, like document dot query selector. Okay, so every website in the browser uh, has a document object model. So basically, all the HTML can be interpreted as an object. You have the HTML object, right? So it's a HTML document, and that HTML document has properties on it, okay? And it also has methods on it. So query selector is like a function that's part of the document, okay? So imagine I had a document object. It's gonna have a ton of things in it, but one of them is query selector, and that's basically a function that's built in to the browser that returns the inner HTML. I don't know what this thing is that it popped up, but we don't need to know exactly how it works. Point is, it's built in. The query selector is a method or a function of the document object that gets you one of the elements. I'm trying to get, let's say, this table data, then I can use the query selector and select it using some HTML or some CSS selectors. Okay, so yeah, that's an example of a built-in property of the document object. And alert belongs to the window. It's actually window.alert, but you don't have to type window dot. It already knows. There's another built-in function. Alright, so key value pairs separated with colon, and if the value is a function, we call it a method. Besides dot notation, you can also access properties using square brackets. So document, it works with properties. I don't know if it works with functions. But let's say here I'm using dot notation, car1 dot image URL. I'm setting it equal to this string. But instead of using dot notation, you could also use the square brackets. The difference would be you put this in quotes. This is the same as this. Okay, so you could write it like that, or you could write it like this. This is useful if um, if the property name, if you didn't know its image URL and for some reason you had this saved as like a variable, like um, see, let image prop equal image URL. Then you could say image prop. And again, this still would be the same as this. Difference is this is like a variable, and this is the actual property name that's going to be in the object. Okay, but just know if you want to access object properties, you could use the dot notation, which is usually easy way. You could also use brackets. Just remember to put quotes around the property name, unless it's a variable. Okay, and arrays are comma separated list within square brackets. Example, car1 features. You got Bluetooth backup camera, leather seats, heated seats. Separate them with commas and put them in square brackets. Call that an array. So my array equals apple, banana. You could put as many things as you want in there. Okay, any questions? Let me do a little test on you guys. I haven't mentioned this yet, but how would I access um, the third feature of car1? We know we can do car1 dot features to get all the features, but what if I just want to get like whatever is the third thing in there? By the way, I'm gonna open this in the browser and inspect it. Just know whenever you do open a document that you set variables in and stuff in the JavaScript, in the HTML. I opened this just now in live server, so I've got it open here. All those variables that I have here, the same ones that are filling in this information, I can still access them from here. So I could say car1, and we can see car1, it's this object with all these properties. Right, it's got image URL, make, model, year, color. You can open this in a drop down to see it differently. Got the color, the features, the image URL, make, model, year. So all the stuff that I listed here and I assigned to it, you can see it here. So if I want to see car1 dot make, car1 dot make, we can do that. Car 2 dot model, car1 dot features. Oops. It lists all the features. So the way you get the third one, or the second one, or the last one, you use square brackets. So if I say car1 features, and I want to know what the second feature is, I use square brackets. Oops. Cool. And I access with the index. Actually, we start counting from 0, which is, you just have to get used to that. So Bluetooth is actually features 0, backup camera is features 1, leather seats is features 2. So start counting from 0, and you can access array values like that. Let's do a more simple example. Let my array equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if I want to see what's the first thing inside this array, say my array and then square brackets 0. Okay, first thing in there, or the thing at index 0, is the number 1. That's how you get it. If I want to see the last thing in there, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Should give us the number 5, or the last thing in there. Another way to get the last thing inside an array, if you don't know how many things are in the array, you just want to know what's the last item inside the array, you could say my array square brackets my array dot length. Actually, might be length minus 1, because the length of the array is going to be the number of objects you have in there. In this case, it's 5. But we know that the last item in there is index 4. Since the length doesn't count from 0, the length is just going to give you the normal length. You need to subtract 1 from there. So length minus 1 will give you the last item in the array. Another way is my array dot pop. Pop removes the last thing from the array and then it shows it to you. But it also removed it from there. So if I look at my array, the 5 is gone because I popped it out. Okay. Unlike other programming languages, JavaScript arrays can have different data types. So you could have an array with strings and numbers and booleans and objects. You can put whatever you want in there. They don't all have to be the same type. but they do have to be the same type in some other more strict programming languages. So we just looked at the length property. It's built into an array. Any array has dot length. You can look at that length property. And pop and push are methods of arrays that are built in. So you saw pop, it removed the last item. It also returned it or displayed it. There's a bunch of other built-in array methods, which I've got listed here. Okay, anything related to arrays, what you might want to do with an array. Remove the first item, remove the last item, add an item to the beginning, add an item to the end of the array. Split the array or create two separate arrays out of that one array, join arrays together, sort the array, convert the array to a string, check if something is an array, find something in an array, find the index, filter an array, concatenate or merge two different arrays. These are all built-in methods you can try on any array. So how many arrays do we have? My R here. Oops. I guess not. This is my array. Okay, let's create another one. Let's say let array2 equal 5, 6, banana, 7. Okay, look at array2. It's 5, 6, banana, 7. And let's say we want to join them together. We could say let new array equal array 2 dot concat, because concat was the one that merges two arrays and returns the new array. So this return is an important word. Return means the value that gets returned from this function or whatever we just did. That's important because usually when you do something like merging something together, merge two arrays together, you want to do something with that new merged value. You want to save it. So first you got to return it so you could save it and then you could do something with it. Otherwise, if it just shows it to you and doesn't really save it anywhere, it's kind of pointless. So returns are important. Okay, when you want to return a value, don't forget to write return. Okay, but concat, the built-in function, automatically returns whatever it just created by merging those two. So array2.concat with my array. Um, I don't think it should. So the fact that it says undefined tells me, well, let's see, new array. It actually did do it. And it returned it, saved it in new array. This undefined, I think, is the result of declaring a new array. That's why it says undefined. I think if I just said array2.concat my array, might have gave me, well, let's try. Instead of saying let, yeah, if I just concat, it'll return. So this got returned and it got saved as array, new array. So if I type new array, we get this new array, which is 5, 6, banana, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice it added this to the beginning. So concat, well, because I said array2 dot concat, basically um, starting with array2, which is 5, 6, banana, 7. I joined my array to it. So basically, yeah, that's why it's backwards. If I said my array dot concat array2, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, banana, 7. Actually, we could say um, another, let another array equal um, my array dot concat array2. Okay, and we look at another array. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, banana, 7. So you could play around with some of these, but just know some of them are not as easy to use. I mean, they're not, you don't just, okay, so let me show you an example. Some of these are a little bit different the way you use them. For example, find. You don't just say, because find, what does it do? First, it returns the value of the first element in an array that passes the test in a testing function. So we have to put a testing function in there. So it's a little more complicated than concat. So for example, um, we already have my array. What are we having here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's say um, my array dot find, and if you're trying to find something, that something has to pass a test. And the way you pass the test is by passing a function in here. I should probably not do this yet. It's a little advanced for the beginners, but we pass a function in here that takes, that looks, it's gonna loop through the array. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's gonna look at each of those, and value is gonna represent 1, 2, 3, and 4 as they take their turns. Okay, each one's gonna have their turn being value. Okay, so first value is gonna equal 1, then value is gonna equal 2, then 3, then 4. Okay, we're gonna say if val, actually we don't use if, we just say value return if value is equal to, or value is greater than 2. I just put return value is greater than 2. So it'll return the first thing it finds. Returns the value of the first element in an array that passes the test. So the first thing that passes this test should be the number 3. And that's why down here you can already see it's showing the number 3. We could also check for like odd numbers by saying value is value divided by or value not divided by, but what do you call it, modulo 2 is equal to 0. That's how you could know if something's an even number, right? If you divide it by 2 and you have no remainder, you know it's an even number. And the first thing that passes that test is the number 2. If we say and value is greater than 2, then it has to pass both of these tests. So if you divide the number by 2, it has to have a remainder of 0. That's what this module, the percentage, means. When you put a percentage, that means if I divide this value by 2, what's the remainder? So 1 divided by 2, you're going to get a fraction. It's not going to be 0. So that doesn't pass the test. 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. So no remainder, or uh, yeah, you get no remainder. So the value of that is 0. That would pass the test. That's why first we saw the 2. But here I added, and it has to be greater than the number 2. Now 2 is not greater than 2, so it doesn't pass the test. 3 is greater than 2, but 3 divided by 2, you get a remainder of 1, so it doesn't pass the first part. But then the 4 divided by 2, you get the remainder of 0, and it's greater than 2, so you get 4 here. But yeah, just try the modulo thing a few times so you kind of understand what it is in case you don't know. So 5 modulo 2, you get remainder of 1, because 5 divided by 2, you get 4 remainder, or you get 2 remainder 1, right? 2 times 2 is 4. You got 1 left. 2. Any even number you do, divide by 2, you're going to get a remainder of 0. So that's kind of a universal way of checking if a number is odd or even. But, you know, a lot of these are simple though. Pop, push, those are simple. Okay, we have this my array 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to add something to it. We could say push. So my array dot push 23. Okay, it returns the new length of the array. It was 4 before, but now that I added something to it, it's 5. So that's why you're seeing a 5 down here. But if we type my array, we'll see the new value. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 23, since I pushed 23 to the end. My array dot shift. Was it shift? Check my array. Sorry, I did that wrong. Shift removes something from the beginning. So the 1 is gone. It doesn't matter that I put a 9 in there. That 9 shouldn't be in there. I thought I was trying to add something to the beginning, but so shift removes something from the beginning. I meant to say unshift. Adds a new element to the beginning of an array and returns the new length. But the shift, where is shift? Removes the first element. So I removed the 1 I meant to say myArray dot unshift 9. Okay, now if I look at myArray, oops, we get a 9 in the beginning because I added it. So push adds the number to the end of the array, and unshift adds it to the beginning of the array. Pop removes it from the end of the array, and shift removes it from the beginning of the array. So pop, push, shift, and unshift are very similar. Okay, I think that's enough like review from the notes. The rest again, I think we'll try to catch up on that again later. Right now I want to look at some of the other things we looked at here. Conditionals. What do I have here? Well, I've got a form that I can fill out name and age, and then a button I can click on. Button is red right now. So my name is Bob, and I'm 22. I'll try to enter. Turns green, so lets me in. But if Bob was 12 years old, get red. And I think I also added some logic for VIPs who, regardless of their age, can get in. And I'm pretty sure David is one. If I'm 10 years old. Oh, I guess I'm not one of the special VIPs. Let's look at the logic to find out who the VIPs are. Okay. Guest list: Elon, Al, Dawn, and Maria, and Jesse. Those are the people on the guest list. So they can enter regardless of their age. So I have a function in here that checks. The function is called try to enter. Okay, where did it go? Try to enter age equals document.getElementById by ID age.value. Okay, there's an element with an ID of age and an element with an ID of name, and those are these two input elements. When you type a value in there, this function, when I click this button, this function fires. So it looks at, when I click the button, then it looks at the name and the age, what's written inside, by getting that element and checking the value of it. And then the guest list, I'm using guest list.find guest name. So return guest name is equal to name. So if this becomes true, it looks through the guest list. If whatever name that's in here passes the test, then on guest list is true. So if on guest list is true, or age is greater than or equal to 21, then the color turns to lime or green color. Otherwise it turns red. So if we type Elon, press enter, it turns green because even though Elon is not greater than or equal to 21, he's still on the guest list. So that's passing one of the cases. This was, I think, the third assignment I gave you guys in 154. So hope you guys remember. Um, then the final assignment. What, that wasn't it. Where did it go? To-do list. Okay, and the final assignment we had here was creating a to-do list, which you can remove items from, or you could add items to. And we're doing this with some basic JavaScript. We got a to-do list, initial to-do list. If I refresh the page, we'll see that initial to-do list. We create a list with the function. We say unordered list. Um, yeah, we say let ul equal document dot create element ul, and then I have a function create list, which whenever we call, it sets unordered list dot html to blank, so it clears it. Then we do a loop. I haven't reviewed loops yet, but it's important. We loop through the to-do list, and we create a list item from each element in the to-do list. So for each of these, I create a li element, list item, because again, it's all inside an unordered list. Create a list item element, and we set the inner HTML to whatever the value of that element is in the to-do list. We're going through each one by one, creating an element, list item element, and we're setting the inner HTML or inner text to whatever this is. Okay, so for each of them we have list item, and the value is whatever the value of the list item is. And then we create a delete button, create element button, delete button dot inner HTML equals times, which gives you that little X. That's the HTML code for this X symbol is and times semicolon. I could have just put X, the letter X, but it would look a little different. Delete button dot add event listener click. We're adding an event listener. We'll talk about that again if you need the review. But event listener basically listens to an event such as a click. So we add the event listener to the button. So the button listens for a click. When I click on it, it calls the delete button function, or delete item. And delete item we had to also define at one point down here. We say function delete item. Item to remove is whatever the target of the click was. Get the attribute index of that. Event.target.get attribute index. Oh, because we also assigned an index to them, I guess. Delete button.set attribute index. I forgot we did that. We gave it an index just so, like, when we click, we know which one to remove. They all have this property called index or attribute. We give it that index, then whenever we're deleting, we console log the to-do list, we console log what item we're gonna remove, then we do the actual removal. We use this splice method, which is also a built-in, where did it go? Built-in array method, splice, adds or removes elements from an array. So we're splicing item to remove. An item to remove was the index number, so that's why we gave it that index. Um, so remove that item, we pass the index, which is also the index of the item in this array. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then when we create um, the index, when we create the button, the list item element, we assign an attribute of index to be whatever the index of the loop was. Okay, so brush teeth is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We create a li element and we say index equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then splice removes an item. So the item to remove is the one with the index. And this number here is how many items you want to remove. We just want to remove one item from that index. We do that and then we recreate the list. Create list creates the new unordered list. So every time we add an item or delete an item, basically refresh the whole thing and create a brand new list. Right. Um, okay, best thing I can do right now is give you guys time to review some of this stuff. Because me just talking like this, it's not going to be easy to follow. I know because I have a hard time following when people are just talking. So best thing to do is try to remember some of the stuff I talked about and review the notes. I pasted it in the chat, but let me also put it on here. Okay. One other important thing, I was assuming from the beginning that everyone has VS Code, but if you don't, download it and install it. Visual Studio Code, code.visualstudio.com. Not to be confused with Visual Studio, the purple one. Don't get this one. This one is a little bit more robust. So there's two of them, Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is the more lightweight. Download that one for whatever system you're on. Okay, remember just get the blue one. Alright, I'm gonna let you guys catch up a little on your own instead of talking the whole time and give you a chance to ask questions. So from now till 9:45, you guys can review the notes and experiment, open your VS Code or open a window and inspect and then try writing some JavaScript in here and then let me know if some questions come up. Okay, I will pause or stop the recording at this point.